Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Sim. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. I am saying this from the bottom of my heart, and it is not because I want to defend anybody. And majority of the example that I use, I refuse to bring black people, British people, and the people involved into this because I don't want it to be a the way they call it diaspora war and all that. No, I use those example because I want you people to understand some certain things that when you get to a space, you have to respect the people's space. That is very vital. That is if you want to prosper in that space. But if you do not want to prosper, whatever happens, that it's your problem, not my problem. Asking black people, why are they not triggered by N word? You are really very crazy. Because black people made it, you know, one thing I love them because they have made it, African Americans made it clear that that word is very offensive, that they do not like it. And you are asking, why are they not triggered by the N word, but they are triggered by colored? Even me as an African that started talking about them, I knew that colored is not something that you are supposed to say to a black person. And when you say it, they do not like it. Why do I have to say it? The problem is that you all do not understand boundaries. And then when people react, then you call them names. I don't do things like this. Let's get into this video.
I think there's a lot of nuance that a lot of us are lacking as to why coloured is so triggering, but the N-word isn't.
Jamal, I love you and I love your content, but this reads like it's being said in bad faith. Honestly, it comes off as slightly antagonistic, like when white people ask why they can't sing the N-word because it's in the songs. How come black people can use it, but we can't? And it's like, can anybody come up to your wife and call her honey baby sugar pie? Or is it just you? Can I pull up to your boyfriend and call him baby darling Buki? No. So we all understand that certain words can be used by certain people in certain contexts and not by other people. So why do we all pretend to be confused about the selective usage of the N-word and its reclamation? It's the same exact way that bitch has been reclaimed by women, but if a man just suddenly calls me a bitch, I'm gonna be like, that's misogynistic. Bitch is a misogynistic slur that women have reclaimed. It's been explained several times how African Americans have reclaimed the N-word, and the N-word still causes offense. The African American community continually discusses how white people, non-black people, should not be using the N-word. And there's even conversations about whether or not black Africans or black people in the diaspora can even use the N-word, considering that it was a word specifically created to denigrate black descendants of slavery within the United States, especially when many black people in the diaspora do parrot anti-African American talking points about African Americans being lazy, etc., etc. It's like, can you use the N-word? Cannot take part in the reclamation of the N-word as a black person in the diaspora who believes the white supremacist lies that African Americans are lazy. That just reads like you're using the N-word in its original form, not in its reclaimed form.
I think we've just learned about American exceptionalism. That's it.
I'm an immigrant to the United States who has been here since I was 9 years old, and I'm still learning about African American culture. The idea that people understand African American culture because they consume it via media is a pervasive one, but it's a wrong one. You're not going to glean everything from the media that is produced because that media is an empire-approved, empire-safe version of African American culture. Like African American culture being represented in American media and therefore being exported around the world isn't a symptom of African American privilege. It's the United States using African American culture to launder itself in order to make you think that African Americans are indeed beneficiaries of empire. Like, you saying that is exactly what empire wants you to do by using African American culture and appropriating it and using it for its soft power. I'm not saying that being African American comes with no privileges when it comes to being American. I have some of those privileges too now as an American citizen, especially with my passport. I love going to countries without having to apply for a visa, which I couldn't do when I had my Kenyan passport. How that privilege shakes out is way more complicated than many people understand or are willing to understand. They're not inherent beneficiaries of American exceptionalism or of empire simply because they live within the United States. They are a colonized entity within the United States. I hope you took this in good faith. Okay, bye.
How come this whole stuff with Tyler is not just xenophobia? People have woken up more confused. The comments are not helping. There's 5,000. Everyone's arguing about different things. So I'm just going to quickly go through what those things are, and hopefully we can find some sort of clarification on why Tyler is being disrespectful. Firstly, to people confused, nobody is suggesting that black Americans are responsible for her album sales. That's not what my claim is. That's not what anybody else's claim is. That is in the video that I'm stitching. That person is saying that black Americans are the reason why her album flopped. I'm only asking about the disrespect. I'm only asking about... that's my accusation, that there's xenophobia connected to this whole Tyler being disrespectful thing, because it's very confusing. Nobody cares about the album sales, so please just get that clear. Now, it seems there's beef between South African Twitter and African American Twitter. I'm not going to get involved in that. I'm not going to pretend to know what all of that was about. I am going to say that you're both arguing that each other slighted the other.
Fans have taken a very strident approach, particularly with Black American women.
I'm colored.
Then you got people from South Africa being weird and shit. And then, you know what I'm saying, not to mention that Zulu shit that y'all...
Then there's a lot of language being used that I'm not comfortable with. It's in my DMs as well. There's essentially like really coded ways of calling her uppity. Someone was calling her bougie. There's a lot of like how she holds herself. Someone was just like, you guys know what the problem is. This isn't just like how she disrespected Halle Bailey at the VMAs. Stuff like that it's really confusing, and I'm personally not a fan of it. Particularly with the VMA thing. Firstly, she handed the award off to Lil Nas X. Nobody seems to want to like clarify that. They're all just saying she was rude to Halle Bailey. But then, like, look at this here.
Oh my gosh, it's so heavy. I literally have no upper body strength.
So wait, can somebody hold this heavy right here? Somebody.
Were they being disrespectful? It just seems like that award is really, really heavy, guys. Just another thought. I think there's a lot of nuance that a lot of us are lacking as to why coloured is so triggering, but the N-word isn't. That's a very interesting nuance that I don't think a lot of us have the language to like understand. I certainly don't. I'm very confused by it. Particularly when you have the NAACP as well, which obviously the C stands for coloured. I'd love clarification on that. There's also so many people saying, like, why are people inserting themselves into this conversation? Like, making that accusation towards me. There's people who've done that with Stitches. This entire thing began because Americans inserted themselves into a conversation that did not concern just specifically Americans. Again, becoming a kind of, like, moral police for the rest of the world. I will agree that she messed up on The Breakfast Club. It was really poorly handled. I think getting into that industry is difficult. Obviously, I know it through my own sister, so, you know... I know the way that these people are just using her. They're not her friends. That's what we should all say about that. Anyway, yeah, I'll leave it there, but it does seem like this has not been adequately explained how she disrespected everyone to this degree. I think there are slights for sure, but I feel like you guys arguing on Twitter is really what this is all about. And that I just can't really blame her for.
Why are Black British people inserting themselves in conversations about the Black American identity, history, and culture when they quite literally don't have the bandwidth, knowledge, or understanding to do so?
I think we've just learnt about American exceptionalism. That's it. Where do we rank? Where does my mother's blackness rank? In terms, you know, her family is Jamaican. She was raised here in the UK. Like, where does she rank in the order of blackness that's allowed to?
And the reason why America has the world's eyes on it is because all the money and power from slavery went to America, and Americans are living in America. You literally live, Black Americans live in a country that has been propped up the most by slavery. But that doesn't mean that Black Americans are somehow more exceptional than Black people from other countries. And don't think that Black Americans are somehow better than the rest of the diaspora, because no one's better than anyone. None of us. No one in the diaspora thinks that. I mean, maybe people like jokingly think it, but no, like most of the diaspora understand that we're all interlinked. So no one can really be better than anyone because we're all mixed. We're all essentially African and we're all essentially Caribbean. We're just a melting pot. But America seems to other itself sometimes.
A common trope is Americans think they're special or main characters or better than everyone else. And the reality is no Black American thinks that they're above any other person in the diaspora. You continuously insert yourself. You continuously speak on, and you tell us that we think that we're the aforementioned. It's like you're in a one-sided competition that doesn't exist for us. Black American culture has an outsized influence on the world, and particularly English-speaking countries. That is a fact that we can't control. Black Brits are inherently British, and it's rich coming from you that American exceptionalism is the reason that Black Americans are speaking up about feeling disrespected about our culture in our own country. It's almost as if it's illegal for Black Americans to speak on Black American culture as it pertains to Black Americans in the country of America, which is our country. We have actually lost the plot if every time a Black American speaks about our culture, it's met with such vitriol and pushback. There's a complete lack of acknowledgement and respect for Black Americans, our culture, and our reality in this entire discourse. Black British people inserting themselves into conversations and feeling like they know more about our culture and our country because they're British and Americans are inherently dumb and they don't know anything about the world. And I'm going to speak to you like we know better is the problem I've had with Black British people since joining this app. The reality is, whenever a Black British person opens their mouth to speak about Black Americans, 99% of the time it's incorrect, loud, and wrong. Your view of America is through the framework of white supremacy, and the tropes and rhetoric you spew forth show your inability to be a part of this very conversation. British exceptionalism also makes you feel that you can spearhead a conversation about Black Americans, our feelings, our history, and our culture, all while showing you're inept to do so. To say, why is there always Black Americans versus the diaspora? And then saying, why do people have to respect Black American culture in America? And then you say, why do we have to bow down to Americans? Shows your feelings are involved and you're clearly not able to speak on this. Quite frankly, no one asked you to speak about our existence. But since you did, Black Americans are the only people in the diaspora who have to live juxtaposed with everyone else in the diaspora because everyone comes to our country, America, to live and make money. And somehow we're meant to accept whatever views you project on us that have been socialized to you, usually rooted in anti Blackness. America is the richest country in the world due to slavery. That is a fact. But Black Americans are the colonized within America, and we absolutely do not benefit directly from the work our ancestors did to build this country to what it is. You say that the entire diaspora outside of America all lives in harmony, all understands each other. And as someone who's lived in America, Haiti, Brazil, South Africa, and London, and goes to Nigeria yearly, this is the biggest lie you've told, which invalidates your entire argument. The diaspora is complex and multifaceted, and countries and tribes and regions have been in conflict with each other for decades. Tribalism runs rampant in African countries as a byproduct of colonialism. Ask Nigerians how they encountered South Africans last year or how they beef with Ghanaians. Ask Haitians how their relations are with Dominicans or Bahamians. Ask Trinis how they are with Venezuelans. When I lived in the UK, I was told, oh, wow, you're smart for an American. You're Black, but where you really from? Americans don't know where you're from, it's a mystery. The list goes on. The reality is, America is our homeland, and we live in our homeland amongst every single country in the diaspora who comes here for a better life. Being here and holding these views disparaging Black Americans' intellect and understanding of others is the problem. Black British people don't have a connection to England because it's not your homeland. The minority of you were in England before the Windrush, and subsequently Caribbean and then Africans came later. So you will always be guests in your country. There is no overarching Black British culture, experience, or history. You're Caribbean or you're African. The fact that you are actually Caribbean and you still fail to understand the Black American experience is alarming because your ancestors exist the same way that mine do. I'd implore you to sit and listen and remove the British shades in which you view the world through and from because you inherently think you're smarter than us because you're British. It is absolutely true that some Black Americans spew ignorant comments and thoughts to others because they're ignorant to the world. That's by design because, like I said, the majority of Black Americans don't benefit from the economic power. We are still oppressed and don't have access to wealth, education, or experiences. That doesn't negate the fact that those from the diaspora are taught and socialized to believe that Black Americans are lazy, ghetto, and upon entering America, delineate yourselves from us. When I was growing up, a Caribbean or African person would rather eat dirt than to say that they were Black. As someone with both Black American and Caribbean family, I know this to be true firsthand. And as a Black British person, you lack the knowledge, nuance, and understanding of what it means to be Black in America. You mentioned the FBA and pretending in fringe movements that don't represent all of us to say that we are the problem, when in reality, you are the problem for speaking about us without the knowledge to do so. Living here and seeing the arrogance that Black British people possess, coupled with the cognitive dissonance you have, is alarming. And I'd suggest you stop coming online attempting to educate or spearhead these conversations when you consistently show you don't have the capacity or the knowledge to do so. We all have the opportunity to learn and listen to each other and dismantle and unlearn the white supremacy we all suffer from. You're not unique because you're from England. You too suffer from the institutionalized socialization that the British Empire has bestowed upon you, the same way in which Black Americans suffer from the colonization we exist in America. We all deserve to be heard, respected, and acknowledged, but for some reason, Black Americans are always a scapegoat, always dumb, always wrong, always extra, always the focal point, and always discussed. Ask yourself why.
So I saw this video about the Tyler discourse and I wanted to talk about it.
How come this whole stuff with Tyler is not just xenophobia?
Tyler barely sold freaking 4,000 copies in her first week for her new EP because of the disrespect she displayed towards Black American people.
I've done my Googles. She posted a video on TikTok. She said, I'm a coloured South African. By the way, we don't say that in the UK either. It's a word that if you say here, you're in trouble. She posts that, and then it blows up. And then, like, for example, on this news article, someone said, we are not going to call her coloured here, and if she personally demands it, her career will end before it even begins. So the anger is sparked to her posting on TikTok, which is an international marketplace. It's an international marketplace. And so now she has to when she comes to America, what happens? What's the rule? Like, I understand that you don't want her to say it, and you don't want to describe her that way.
To everyone in the diaspora that keeps disrespecting Black Americans, what have we learned from this?
I think we just learned about American exceptionalism. That's it. Where do we rank? Where does my mother's blackness rank? In terms, her family is Jamaican. She was raised here in the UK. Like, where does she rank in the order of blackness that's allowed to own their black? What the hell is going on with everybody?
Now, we're not going to go over the whole thing. Essentially, what he's just saying is that the reason why the Tyler discourse is discoursing is because of American exceptionalism. And he's even kind of implying this weird black hierarchy, which, I mean, I don't see that as a thing. But what it actually comes down to is a bunch of series of miscommunications and xenophobia. And the xenophobia goes both ways, but it especially is xenophobia towards Black American people because of the idea that we are pointing out racism in a way that is like dismissive of other culture. One thing to note is that a lot of the conversation is really annoying in the sense that people are acting like Black Americans don't have knowledge, but most of us, I would say, at least the ones that I know, are aware that the only reason why South Africa's apartheid exists the way it did is because they were inspired by what happened to my people during Jim Crow. So when people talk about apartheid South Africa or just the way that South African culture is structured, like, there is roots in Black American struggle, and we do happen to understand it because of that. So the dismissal that I saw when this started to really pop off, and then the dismissal that I continue to see as it keeps coming back, is to me, it's just weird because, like, what's so wrong about knowing that, like, oh yeah, that thing that you guys are doing now, it kind of exists because it happened to us. The way that you guys are structured now is kind of the way it is because of what happened to us. So going back to the whole conversation, what really sparked a lot of this was Tyla's statement on her TikTok. And this guy emphasizes how TikTok is it's an international platform, but that ignores the fact that Tyla, from that point on to like even modern day, has been attempting to break into the American market by appealing to Black Americans, because Black Americans in America are tastemakers. So what Black Americans decide are cool tends to influence America and then the rest of the world. A good example of this is even in this video, this British man uses AAVE, which is African American Vernacular English. And I'm not going to pretend that it was exclusively for Black Americans, but there was a concerted effort. And this is the part that South Africans in South Africa and Brits in Britain and otherwise did not see, because you're not in America, so you're not seeing the American cultural circuit the way we were. So you didn't see the way that she was appearing on live streams from prominent Black or Black adjacent creators, or how she was being pushed in BET, how she was being pushed by appearing on The Breakfast Club, which is the thing that comes up later in this conversation. Like, the infantilization of just like assuming that Black Americans don't understand marketing and don't understand culture, or when people are trying to appeal to us, it's really insulting in my opinion. So ultimately what made Tyla's video actually pop off wasn't necessarily the fact that she said that, it was the response, and it wasn't necessarily just from her, it was mostly her fans. And it was mostly from people who are outside of Black American culture commenting on how Black Americans were overreacting. And in this case, this guy is trying to insist that we're trying to be American exceptionalists. But like, how are the most marginalized people in America like doing that? Well, it doesn't matter because he doesn't know anything about Black American culture. So then that kind of brings us to the Breakfast Club interview, which is a very big failing on her part and her team's part, because the whole purpose of that should have been to address the way that there's a cultural disconnect and kind of relitigate the stance. That way she could actually bridge the gap between these two communities, because she's trying to sell to Black Americans while maintaining her South African identity, which again is rooted in Black American identity, because the apartheid and that caste system structure was partially inspired by what they did to us in America. So instead of addressing that, her team chose to make it a thing where she didn't address that, which is really condescending and really insulting to a lot of people who think that we should be able to have this kind of conversation. And I think that when you are a mature adult and someone is withholding the ability to have a very important conversation, a very nuanced conversation with you, it comes off as if they're deciding that you don't have what it takes to understand it. And even the way that her fans were reacting to it felt very dismissive. And even to this day, there's a lot of dismissive elements just like in the comment section of the video that I'm stitching or replying to. Because we can recognize that South Africa has its own culture and its own systems of oppression, while also recognizing that, again, those systems of oppressions were built off of what they did to us in America. And even the racial caste system and race itself is something that was invented for the oppression of us. So this idea that people would take issue with that is not a very weird idea. And then again, there's this other component, and that component is when you're like trying to appeal to a culture, you want to be respectful to the culture. And respect is very nebulous of a term, but let's just say I'm going to Japan. I know that in Japan, when you buy something, you're supposed to receive the receipt with both hands. That's a sign of respect, to grab the receipt with both hands when you get it. That's just a basic thing, right? If I was going to Japan, I would look up those kinds of things to make sure I don't offend Japanese people. I wouldn't just go as a Black American and assume that they're just going to accept my Black American culture and my Black American values. Like, there has to be a bridge between, right? Another example of that is Pac-Man and Puck-Man. Pac-Man was originally going to be called Puck-Man, but they were like, oh, if we bring these cabinets to America, then they might vandalize it by changing the P to an F, understanding the cultural context that is America and the vandalism that was rampant in arcades. So instead of having a conversation that's tough to talk about the way colored means something in South Africa and how she can recognize that it means something in America, and basically trying to have a conversation of how to address this very unique situation, it became a thing of like, oh, Black Americans always make everything about race. Black Americans think everything revolves around them. And it's like, they were literally marketing to us. It literally does revolve around us in this particular instance. So for a lot of people, not doing that bare minimum of trying to have respect for a Black American culture, while again, the entire world is a colonizer of Black American culture. Like so many parts of so many cultures take from Black Americans, like, at great lengths without a respect for Black American people, because a lot of you guys think of America and you don't care to even make that delineation that there's a Black American culture, and that gets picked up and sold by white America and then repackaged. That's just American culture. You guys just buy it because you don't care to actually know anything about our culture. And again, I think that's like the bare minimum. Whenever I travel, which I travel a lot, that's like the thing I do. I learn about the culture so I don't do things that are offensive to those people. Like, for instance, if I returned to London, I wouldn't season my food, use air conditioning, or drink water. And I just really find this, like, last part that he says really particularly asinine, because, like, no one is saying that there's a Black racial hierarchy, but you guys have, in fact, enforced a Black racial hierarchy where Black Americans are at the bottom, because the way that you guys are super uneager, super disinterested with actually learning or understanding the Black American perspective and dismissing it says everything, right? That video is so bad. Like, it's such a British video. So it just tells me that this guy is more interested in being British than being understanding of Black American people.
How come this whole stuff with Tyler is not just xenophobia?
Tyler barely sold freaking.
I know that's not what you said or what was implied, but Black Americans not wanting to buy Tyler's album and not wanting to be referred to as colored in the States is not xenophobia. That's not the word I would use. And again, you've been respectful to me, so I'm gonna be respectful to you as well, because I value your opinions. I like your content. Yeah, no, that's not xenophobia, right? What xenophobia is Black South Africans attacking Black women in their comment sections, Black American women in their comment sections, saying that it's Black women's fault that Tyler did not sell, right? Hopping in Black folks' comment sections making slavery jokes because we told Tyler that in the States we don't like to be referred to as colored, right? In South Africa, if you want to call yourself colored, do that. But here in the States, that's just a very, very, very sensitive word. It's not like a cuss word. There's a lot of history behind it, right? And another thing that annoys Black Americans, right? A lot of Black Americans don't like the fact that folks who are Black in Africa, folks who are Black in the UK, folks who are Black in Australia, think that Black Americans don't know their history about Black folks in the diaspora. Black people in America are not stupid. They know their history. They know the totality. They know the seriousness. They know everything. We're they're not dumb. Black Caribbean folk, we're not dumb. We know everything, right? Again, if Tyler wants to refer to herself as colored, she has the right to do so. But you're not going to sell in America. I don't know, xenophobia is not the word I would use. Black Americans not wanting to support an artist because of a very, very damaging word like that in the States is not xenophobia. Black Americans have every right to support and not support who they want. And I stand 10 toes on what I said.
This is all I got from this video. I think the other time I tried as much as I can to give emphasis, but it looks like some British people will never rest. I remember some people asking me why is it that I don't do British content and all that, and I told you people something. They are just cray on a very serious note, and also I've not been able to connect to their soul, because you can't talk about people that you are not connected to. This was the answer that I gave also. Now let me tell us something. So this man actually sat down and said colored is triggering to black people, right? Why N-word is not. You see the problem that I have with when I tell you people that I don't want to talk about them, you think that I am being mean. No, it is not me being mean, because someone that is old enough, I don't understand how people speak. As a 20-year-old person, okay, I know I am digressing, right? But let me give you an example, and this is how this will happen. My boss, right? When I traveled back to my mom's funeral, I went to see them a day before my trip, right? I traveled back the next day. My boss did not call me from that day till when. She didn't even check up on me. The funeral, the burial passed. I think she checked up on me on maybe on the 15th. That is like 15 or 16 days after the funeral. And I said I wasn't ever going to call anybody. Now, understand this. Then my boss's co-wife, the daughter, right, she'll be 20 years this year. Right? She's not yet 20. She's 20 years. When I got to Nigeria, I didn't write to anybody, actually. She wrote me. She asked me, did you get home safely? I said yes. Then on the wake up day, she wrote me. She said, I know you are going to be very busy, and this is just me sending you strength, right? On the funeral day, she did not write. She actually understood that I would be very busy, right? The next day, which was the second day of the funeral too, it was busy but not so busy. She wrote me. She asked me, how did the funeral go? I know you were busy, that's why I didn't write you. I told her that we are on the second day of the funeral, right? She said, okay, that she's just checking up to know how I'm doing. After the burial, the Thanksgiving day, she wrote me. She asked, how did the Thanksgiving go? Right? She's 19 years. She'll be 20 next month. Does that explain something to you? I thought that as people are getting older, they are becoming smarter. But no, I think I don't understand this year or this 2021 upward. I don't understand it, because older people are acting like stupid people. I use that word because I know why I said that. Older people are acting really very stupid. Black people are triggered by colored. Black people are also triggered by N-word. That is not a good thing to say to a black person, and they make it clear. And you mounted your camera as a man or as an old man, because you are not young. I don't care how old. I know you are up to 30 years, and said what you said. That shows how poorly educated or how poor your brain is. Because someone that knows something, we absolutely understand that you are not supposed to say something like this. Let me tell you something. I don't care if you are 10 years or 20 years. As you get into a space, you have to learn about some certain things about them. If I am in United States and you tell me, black people tell me that colored is not something that I shouldn't say, and I am in that space to win, right? I am in that space to win. Why do you want me to come to America and identify myself as a colored person? I will kill that colored and wait till I get back to where I am coming from and continue to use it, because it is what you use in your own place. I have told you people that I am Igbo, right? And in my culture, there are some things as a first daughter that I am supposed to do, right? If I move from my town to another town because I am the first daughter, right? Or maybe, let's say Yoruba people. If I have Yoruba people in here, or if you know much about Yoruba people, let me know. I always use them because I'm in Lagos is the happening place, and it's Yoruba people that own the. And also, I served also in Yoruba land, right? Because I am Igbo and I do not know Yoruba culture is not also an excuse. It's just like going to a shrine, and because I am Igbo, maybe as a first daughter or as a daughter, you are supposed to enter shrine in your own culture, and you came to Yoruba land and you are entering their culture. If you die, that is your problem. I cannot do it. You ask questions. That's why no matter how unintelligent you are, you see, asking questions, looking for people that will explain something to you, ask question. Nobody will kill you. If you had openly asked them, please, what am I supposed to do in this situation? I am not going to lie to anybody. You see, coming to somebody's space and disrespecting them is not okay. Sometimes I use my left hand unknowingly, right? Like I use it a lot unknowingly, especially giving somebody something and taking back from people. Where I come from, I cannot go to, I am very conscious. If I go down to my hometown, maybe, or go to market, I cannot give an old person something with left hand. They will tell you to change it. Even in Europe, I think it has happened. I think there was a time I traveled. I went to the market. A man was talking to me and he told me, no, you don't. You have to use your left hand to turn it to the right hand and give it to me. And it was money. I had to turn it and give it to him. He said it's very disrespectful. And I had to turn it to give him. So should I say that I am Igbo? Because I am an Igbo person. For that reason, I have to insist that I will use. No, that is a big disrespect to them. I don't know if this does make sense. That's why I don't want to bring black people and bring black British people or bring Tyler into all this discussion. But all these things that I told has explained to you what I meant. Enough of disrespecting people and thinking that they are going to accept it. It is not okay. You people should learn to understand people's way of life. That is why there is culture. Even if you do, you all believe that they do not have culture, but you all steal all their things. Especially the British. I am British. British indeed. I am sorry. It's not okay. I meant it and I said what I said. Bye for now.